Hello, I'm Judy, and I'd like to welcome you to Coffee, Cookies, and Books. And today, what we're going to do is talk about 20 books that are coming in the month of March. Thanks again for joining me today. I'm really looking forward to bringing you 20 great books that I've looked into that are coming in the month of March. Now, one of the reasons that I wanted to do this video is that in March, I am participating in what's called Realmothon 4.0. It's created by Cassidy. It covers with Cassidy. I will leave the link below to the specific video because she talks about all the rules of engagement, so to speak. I am on Team Monarch, and I really love it. If you would join in on this, it's going to be a lot of fun. But anyways, what I thought I would do is I came up with a list of 20 books in varying genres that are going to be coming out in the month of March. So this could be something where you could plan your reading around it and include those books in your reads for Realmothon. Now, I have a few books that are on this list that I have pre-ordered, which I might include. I haven't decided yet. One of them is a romance that's expected, but I have not read. I read the first romance, haven't read the second one. I do have it, and the third one's coming out in March, so I might very well read that second one instead. But anyways, we'll talk about all that when we get to that book in the list of 20. Now, what I'm going to do is I'll give you kind of a short synopsis. I'll give you an idea of what kind of book each one is. And of course, I will show you the cover. I'll do that over here because I'm going to have my computer here and I'm going to read from my computer. So I think that that should work really well. Before we get started, I would really love it if you could like and subscribe to the channel below. I'm trying to reach the first milestone of 500 subscribers. And if you could help me out with that, I'd be greatly appreciated. In the meantime, let's get on with the video. So we have 20 books in total, and I have ordered them in release date order. There is a huge batch of them actually that are March 4th, which if you wanted to include them in the Realmothon, it would give you lots of opportunity to actually get the books and read them in the month of March. Now, so this video is going up on February 17th, so that gives you almost half of the month of February to pre-order if you want to pre-order some of these. Then on the 24th of February, which is the following week, I will be doing my full TBR for what I'm planning for the Realmothon. I do have a huge list, and I'll explain then what I'm going to do with it. So I did, I'll put up, so this is the video that I'm going to link below, which is Covers by Cassidy, discusses, and then these are my two, the hosts of the group that I'm with, which is Jen from the Book Refuge and Bree from For Pause in a Book, which I follow both of them very closely, which was one of the reasons that I wanted to join their group, which is the Monarchs. I think I mentioned that already, but anyway, so I have a very eclectic taste in what I read. I do not shy away from much. I think the only thing that I don't read a lot of is women's fiction, which I have mentioned that previously. And there is a couple of books in here that do kind of cover that. The first one we're going to talk about actually is one, and it is one that I am going to potentially mark that one because it sounds great. It's not a super long book. It's only 307 pages. So let's just get started, shall we? And get on with these books. Okay, so as I mentioned, is the first book, which I'm going to put the books up here, is called Wild Dark Shore by Charlotte McConaghy. And it is, these huge batch of them are releasing on the 4th of March. And this book is releasing on March 4th. Now, it is classified as women's fiction. When I read through the synopsis, it sounds like it's a family that lives on a remote island. A mysterious woman washes ashore, and a storm is coming in. So it's a story about their lives and how she affects it, how they become closer to her. And of course, everybody has secrets. And the final line in the synopsis says, a novel of breathtaking twists, dizzying beauty, and ferocious love. Wild Dark Shore is about the impossible choices we make to protect the people we love, even as the world around us disappears. I thought that sounded super interesting. I am actually going to put a little check mark, question mark beside it on my list, because I may very well order this one. I love how it sounds. And this being only 307 pages, it may very well fit nicely into the middle of the month for the Realmothon is a readathon that middle weekend. And so you get bonus points for the more books that you read. So I'm trying to find books that fit in between, like, you know, a novella to 300 pages and somewhere in there, because I can read a lot of those. And it's basically like starts from 7 o'clock Friday evening and through to all day Saturday and Sunday. So I can actually read a lot of books in that time. And so, yeah, I'm kind of thinking that I will maybe get this one. So we shall see. But anyways, March 4th. So loved that one. The next one on the list is Our Infinite Fates. So this is another one that I found very interesting. It's classified as young adults because the main character is 18. Now, what happens is, I'm just going to read this part. It is The Invisible Life of Addie LaRue meets This is How to Lose the Time War, in this fantastical love story that defies death as two souls reincarnate through the centuries. So they've loved each other in 1,000 lifetimes. They've killed each other in every one. So it's about these two souls, and every time Arden hits her 18th birthday, this supernatural soul that's linked to hers kills her. Right? So she's now in a point where she doesn't want to die. She's got a younger sister who depends on her. And how is she going to get out of this fate? That's why it's called Our Infinite Fates. It's by Laura Stephen. Again, release date is March 4th. I thought this sounded really interesting. I don't read a lot of YA, so I probably wouldn't pick this up myself, but you know, it definitely has an interesting sound to it. It like, I have not read The Invisible Life of Addie LaRue. I have wanted to read that. I just have not gotten to the point where I've picked that book up and read it, but there is a good likelihood that I will at some point. But anyways, I thought this sounded really super interesting and a great one to potentially consider if you wanted to read it. Not a long book. It's only 346 pages, so pretty good read. So this one is called Dream Count by Chimamonda Ngozi Adichie. I hope I did not bastardize that name. I apologize if I did. Tough last names. Anyways, first name, middle name, and last name. You're confusing. Now, this is definitely, I guess, what would be considered. It is Black and African American literature, cultural heritage, historical fiction, and literary fiction. So it is about a. Let's see, what does this say? It's named as 2025's most anticipated release by the New York Times, Oprah Daily, The Times, Elle, Literary Hub, The Guardian, a publishing event 10 years in the making, a searing, exquisite new novel by the best-selling and award-winning author of Americana and We Should All Be Feminists, the story of 4 women and their loves, longings, and desires. So it certainly sounds like it would be definitely women's fiction and for sure, literary fiction. I don't know that it would be something that I would particularly pick up, but I may very well, because this is the kind of fiction that I wanted to expand my reading this year. So this would kind of really fall into that category. So this is about 400 pages, so not super long. Now, I don't think that I would add this into my TBR for the month of March, because this is something that I would want to really take my time with when I'm reading it. Whenever it's something that is the kind of fiction that I have not read before. Like, an example is I just finished reading The Adventures of Amina El-Sarafi. I had never read anything quite like that before, and it actually, I spent the week last week reading this and thoroughly loved it, like thoroughly. Just an amazing book. But I think that it's the kind of thing that you need to sit with a little bit, and I think this one would actually be that kind of book. So I don't know that I would necessarily want to get this myself and read it right away. It's the kind of thing that I want to fit into my TBR when I have the type of TBR that's a little less demanding, I guess is the best way of putting it. The next one. So this is one that I thought sounded like a really, really sweet book. It's called Spells, Strings, and Forgotten Things by Breanne Randall. And it is a young witch cursed with sacrificing memories to cast spells, must decide how much she's willing to lose to save her town in this thrilling tale of magic, love, and self-discovery. This is from the New York Times bestselling author of The Unfortunate Side Effects of Heartbreak and Magic. I thought this sounded like a really cute book. I'm not, not opposed to anything that has a little bit of magic in, that involves a witch. Always love stories like this. It talks about an ancient evil, which I thought is really cool. So there are definitely fantastical elements. I love the cover. Up over here, yeah, this corner. Love the cover. I thought the cover was really great, and the synopsis sounds interesting. So I think that I might pick this one. Actually, you know what? I'm going, because I put a question mark beside that one. I think I may very well, I am going to pre-order this one, because it just sounds like a book that's right up my alley, and I would really love to read it. Next is Promise Me Sunshine by Cara Bastone. Now, this, of course, is a romance, and grieving the loss of her best friend, a young woman's life is turned upside down when she meets a grumpy stranger who swears he can leave her to help her live again in this heartwarming slow burn romance by the author of Ready or Not. So I know I've heard this author's name before. I've actually never read any of her romances. Could be a good time to start. Typically, when I have not read an author before, usually if it's a romance author, I won't put it into my TBR as a specific TBR type change. And that's mostly because when it's a new author, I like to really take my time with the read. So we'll see. I don't know that I would particularly get this one. It also sounds like it's not the first one in a series of books, so I would want to check into that. I don't know if it's the kind of book that you have to read it in order. Doesn't sound like it is, but anyway, so that's that one. So the next book that I have up is The Unworthy by Agustina Bazterrica. Again, I'll put the cover up here, along with the release dates in case I forget to mention them, because I'm notorious for forgetting to mention that, or the author's name, or whatever. This one I saw mentioned, I think it was Audrey from Chapter and Converse, that she was the one who mentioned this. One of the, either her or Lexi, maybe, I don't know. I watch some channels because they're more romance oriented, and then I have some channels that are more thriller and mystery oriented, and then others that are kind of like myself, and they kind of read a little bit of everything. And like Monica Fortier, is it Fortier? I love her channel, watch her all the time, and Emily Fox. So those are two ladies who kind of watch, kind of read a broad spectrum of books. And this one's been mentioned by somebody because I've seen it at least twice, and it's kind of creepy. Okay. And I think it's supposed to be creepy because I'm definitely, what is it categorized here? I know it is, dystopian science fiction, Hispanic American literature, and literary fiction. But it says the long-awaited novel of the global sensation Tender is the Flesh. So that's her previous book, a thrilling work of literary horror about a woman cloistered in a secretive, violent religious order while outside the world has fallen into chaos. So it's clearly a dystopian type story. From her cell in a mysterious convent, a woman writes the story of her life in whatever she can find: discarded ink, dirt, and even her own blood. A lower member of the sacred sisterhood, deemed an unworthy, she dreams of ascending to the ranks of the enlightened at the center of the convent and of pleasing the forbidding superior sister. Outside, the world is plagued by chaos. Cities are submerged underwater. Electricity and the internet are non-existent, and bands of survivors fight and forage in a cruel, barren landscape. Inside, the narrator is controlled, punished, but safe. So it certainly sounds bizarre. And then another stranger shows up. So it's a tale about climate crisis, ideological extremism, and the tidal pull of our most violent exploitive instincts. This is another unforgettable novel from a master of feminist horror. Yeah, that sounds super creepy. Okay. I don't know if I'm not turned off by the elements in the book, but it creeps me out a little, if I'm being honest. But that doesn't mean that I still wouldn't pick it up, because I find it like just super interesting. The covers, even the cover's weird. I think it's an ugly cover, but when you look at it, captures your attention because it's like a circle, like the world, and super, super interesting book. Next book we have A Harvest of Hearts by Andrea Eames. Now, this is definitely fantasy. It's listed under sword and, what is it, sword and sorcery? Yeah, sword and sorcery fantasy. I don't know that it is a YA. It does not say it's YA, so it could be very well adult fantasy. It is romance. It says fantasy romance. So if there's romance in it, it depends on what the level of the romance is. No idea. But in the beloved tradition of Howl's Moving Castle and the House of the Cerulean Sea, a whimsical and unforgettable cozy adventure cozy fantasy about adventure, common sense, and the power of love. As a cheeky butcher's daughter, a befuddling handsome sorcerer, and his clever talking cat unlock magical secrets in the dark heart of their kingdom. So it certainly sounds like it would be an interesting read. It's not super long. It's just around 400 pages. So definitely a cute fantasy. It looks like it's a standalone fantasy, which is kind of rare. Typically, you find most fantasies like, yeah, you got to read like 3 books to get through them. So you're constantly waiting on one to come out. But this does not say it's listed as part of a series or anything like that. So standalone is nice. And the fact it's only 400 pages also makes it a nice, quick read. But so there's that one. Our next book is Wildside by Elsie Silver, which is book 3 of 3 in the Rose Hill series. So it doesn't look like there's going to be any more in it. I have the previous 2. As I said, this is the one where I have not read the second one, and the third one's coming out, and I do have it on pre-order, but I don't think I'll be reading either one of them in the Realmothon when I do it, because I have a couple of other romances that are in there that I'm going to be reading that our other series. So this one I'll probably put it to the side, because these 2 books I can finish them at a later date, and then the series is finished. I didn't particularly find the first one all that good. I found it a bit too long. Didn't hate it though. There were certain parts of it that I really, really liked. Wes being in particular. So of course his book is the second book in the series. So, you know, we'll see, but I am going to get this one, and it is on pre-order. So yeah, we'll leave it at that. So the next one I have on my list is called The Ragpicker King by Cassandra Clare. Now I believe this, yes, it says this is the second one in the Chronicles of Castellane. What was the previous book? Oh, yes, The Sword Catcher. So that was the first book in the series. This is the second book in the series called The Ragpicker King. I have not read any of Cassandra Clare's books. I get the distinct feeling, not this series. I think this series is rated adult, but her previous ones were all young adult. And so it don't really interest me all that much, but at some point I might pick them up, but for now, no. But this is great if you've read The Sword Catcher. You might want to grab this one. Again, it's another March 4th release. As I said, there's like a huge amount of books that are coming out on March 4th. So this will be one of them. And then another one that's a series is Oathbound, which is the 3rd book in the Legendborn cycle series. I do have the first book, which I think is Legendborn, in the Legendborn cycle. So I have that one. Don't have the second one. Again, it's YA, so, you know, we'll see how it goes with the first one if I do get around to reading it, which, you know, it's in my jars, so it'll get picked at some point. But I don't have any plans on reading this, but this is the 3rd one. If you're interested, it's coming out March 4th. Great time to pick it up. And it looks like it's available in all kinds of different formats. So, you know, a good chance to grab that one. Then the next one is The Dream Hotel by Laila Lalami. Now, this is another book that was definitely mentioned, I believe, by Audrey in Chapter and Converse, because this is a sort of a kind of a riveting thriller, women's fiction type thing. So I'm going to read a tiny bit of this. So it says, a riveting and utterly original novel about one woman's fight for freedom set in a near future where even dreams are under surveillance. Sarah has just landed at LAX, returning home from a conference abroad, when agents from the Risk Assessment Administration pull her aside and inform her that she will soon commit a crime. Using data from her dreams, the RAA's algorithm has determined that she is at imminent risk of harming the person she loves most, her husband. For his safety, she must be kept under surveillance for 21 days. Now, obviously there's more to it than that, but this is one that I definitely want to grab because it sounds super interesting. Unfortunately, it's really, really crazy expensive to pick up. But so there are a couple of these that I'm actually hoping might show up in Book of the Month, because I do find that a lot of these types of books will sometimes be available as the picks. So those won't be available until the last week of February. So I'm holding off on any pre-orders on any of this because I'm really hoping that something like this would be the perfect thing that they might pick up. This is a Pulitzer. Thank you. It says this is a Pulitzer Prize finalist. So I'm going to cross my fingers on that one. There's a couple more sprinkled in here too that may come available with Book of the Month. You never know, because a lot of times with Book of the Month, it'll be something that's coming out the next month and you can grab it early. So hoping on that one. Next one I actually do have on pre-order because I have all of the other books, and that is Finlay Donovan Digs Her Own Grave. I don't think I need to say too much about this. This is kind of like crime comedy, cozy perhaps. Yeah, I have the rest. I have all 4 of the other books in this series. This is the 5th and final one, I believe. So I got it on pre-order because I do want it, because I have the rest of them. I have them all in paperback. So I've ordered the paperback in this one, and looking forward to reading all of them. They're just, I think they're a good, fun read. I mean, I would say that I average them at like 4 stars, 3 to 4 stars, which to me is good average read, 3 to 4 stars. I mean, these, I don't typically see them as 5-star reads, but I still think they're good and worth reading and worth buying. So, and worth putting on pre-order. So that's that one. The next one I also don't think I need to say too much about. It is Sunrise on the Reaping by Suzanne Collins, which is another prequel to the first Hunger Games, the 3 Hunger Games, the original 3. This is Haymitch's story, and it is the 50th anniversary, because if you recall, if you haven't read the Hunger Games, you might recall that the second one is the 75th. There's the 74th and the 75th. So this one takes place 25 years before that. And it is when Haymitch was a tribute, and it's his story. And I definitely want to get this one. I don't know if I have it on pre-order or not. Maybe. Or maybe not. I don't know. We shall see. But I would really like to get this one. But, I mean, I'm not in a hurry because I want to reread the first 3 books. It's been a very long time since I read those. And I have not read the Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes. And I do have that on one of my challenges for this year. So I want to read that first, and then I'll eventually get around to reading this one. So I'm not in a huge rush to read it. I mean, I want the paperback, not the hardcover, because I have, do I have them? I have the Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes in paperback. The other 3 I have in like a collection of 3. So, I'll take this one and get this one in paperback. But it is not scheduled to come out in paperback. So until it does. Now this one is not available until the 18th of March. So now we're out of the 4th of March. They're all done. And this is the first one that is a different date. And the 18th of March is the next date that we have up, where we have several that are coming out on that. Next one, again, is another sequel. It's the 4th one in the Dream Harbor series by Laurie Gilmore, called The Strawberry Patch Pancake House. This is part of the Cinnamon Bun Bookstore, you know, that whole series. Have not read it, do not have it, but I probably will at some point, because I do like cozy stories, and I mean, I do want to read it, I just haven't gotten around to read it. But anyways, that's this one. And again, it's on March 18th. And it's just, you know, it's a romance. And this is world-renowned chef, single dad Archer, never planned on moving to a small town, let alone running a pancake restaurant, but Dream Harbor needs a new chef, and Archer needs a community to help raise his daughter Olive. So I think some of the previous ones, it's a woman who's bought a business in Dream Harbor. So this one's obviously from a male perspective, which I think is great. Next book. Now, this is the only nonfiction that I put on this list. And I put it on because, now, it is talking about tuberculosis, which is a deadly infection. But it is told from the point of view of one young man who has it. And so it's, I think, a bit of a touching story of how he goes about the whole thing, and advocating from one person's perspective, and that sort of idea. So I actually thought this sounded really interesting. I do like anything that has to do with science. Something like that always piques my interest, and at some point I would probably get this. Again, this is one of those books that you get and you probably read it in between reading everything else, so it usually ends up being a slower read. I've had a few of my, because I like heavy topics in my nonfiction books, and so I tend to read those a lot slower. Sometimes it can take me a month to get through one because I'm reading other stuff in between. So, and this might be one of those. The next one is called The Buffalo Hunter, and it is a chilling historical horror novel set in the American West in 1912, following a Lutheran priest who transcribes the life of a vampire who haunts the fields of the Blackfeet Reservation looking for justice. It's a story in the past. Let me see, what is it? Vampire horror fiction, American horror fiction, Native American literature. So it says, a diary written in 1912 by a Lutheran pastor is discovered within a wall. What it unveils is a slow massacre, a chain of events that go back to 217 Blackfeet dead in the snow, told in transcribed interviews by a Blackfeet named Good Stab, who shares the narrative of his peculiar life over a series of confessional visits. This is an American Indian revenge story written by one of the new masters of horror, Stephen Graham Jones. So it sounds super interesting. So it sounds like it's told in an interview format. Yeah, just anyways, I take that as it is. Is there anything else that's on the back of it? No, nothing in particular. I just found the whole premise of it really fascinating. I don't know that it'd be the kind of book that I might pick up right away, but down the line, yeah, I might, because again, it's one of those books that kind of skirts a few different things, like it's historical but horror, which I love that. So yeah, maybe we shall see. You never know. Okay, so then the next one is Kiss the Villain by Rena Kent. So this is a dark enemies to lovers romance. So and this one's March 20th is its date that it's coming out. It does not have, that just says for Kindle, a Kindle edition. Now, typically what happens is once it hits March 20th, then the print books come available, but at this point that just says for Kindle. And it says, my darkness meets a darker soul. So this is two men. Okay, and I'm a golden boy, a genius law student, the heir to the Carson Empire, and the dutiful son. Or at least that's what it looks like from the outside. Deep inside, I have an urge to set the world on fire. I keep these impulses in check, merely indulging in mayhem until one night of debauchery backfires and I'm caught by a villain. I bury the entire ordeal with the rest of my skeletons. That is until the night walks into my classroom in the form of my new professor, Caden Lockwood. So obviously this is a teacher-student type thing and an MM. So definitely sounds like it's going to be dark. It says print length is 510 pages, and it's part of the Legacy of the Gods. So it's related to it, but it is not one of, I think the original is, there's 6. I haven't read any of them. I just got God of Malice to start the series, and I have not read this series yet, but this one sounds like it's an accompaniment to the 6 books that are part of that series. This book will Bury Me by Ashley Winstead. I have this book on pre-order, and again, this is another one that when I read the premise of it, and Audrey talked about it on Chapter and Converse, that I thought it sounded like a really, really great book. Obviously, she's a best-selling author, so now I have not read anything by her, so this is going to be my first book by her. And it says it's the most famous crime in modern history, but only she knows the true story. After the unexpected death of her father, college student Jane Sharp longs for a distraction from her grief. She becomes obsessed with true crime, befriending armchair detectives who teach her how to hunt killers from afar. In this morbid internet underground, Jane finds friendship, purpose, and even glory. So, when news of the shocking deaths of 3 college girls in Delphine, Idaho, takes the world by storm and sleuths everywhere race to solve the crimes, Jane and her friends are determined to beat them. But the case turns out to be stranger than anyone expected. Details don't make sense, the police are cagey, and there seems to be more media hype and internet theorizing than actual evidence. Jane and her sleuths take a step closer. They find that every answer only leads to more and more questions. Something's not adding up, and they begin to suspect their killer may be smarter and more prolific than any murderer they've faced before. Placing themselves in the center of the story starts to feel more and more like walking into a trap. So this is based on the events from the actual deaths that happened in the true story of the 3 girls that were killed in, I think it was Idaho. And I think his trial is going on right now, if I'm not mistaken. So I just think that this book is kind of based on that. Obviously, this is a work of fiction, but I loved the sound of it, and I have this one on pre-order. Now, maybe it'll come. It'll be in the book of the month for February. I'm like, maybe. Fingers crossed, because that would be really cool if I could get this one in Book of the Month for February. So that's a March 25th release. So, I mean, it could potentially be in Book of the Month because they pick them up and you get them for the month previously. So I'm going to keep my fingers crossed that I can get a hold of that one because even just the paperback is $25.99, whereas in Book of the Month, I get them, I think they're $14.99 or something like that. So, unless I can get it for my free pick. You never know. Maybe. Okay, the next one, I found this and I'm like, is this the same author as Lightlark? And it is the same author as Lightlark. So this one's coming out. It's a romance, and it's coming out on March 25th. And it says from the New York Times bestselling author Alex Astor comes her adult debut novel, Summer in the City. A swoony, fast-paced rom-com set in New York City in which a screenwriter and a sexy tech CEO go from lovers to enemies and back to lovers again. So that sounds like fun. But anyways, it's a romance, and 27-year-old screenwriter Elle has a chance of a lifetime to write a big budget movie set in New York City. The only problem, she has writer's block. She's had writer's block for months, and her screenplay is due at the end of the summer. In a desperate attempt for inspiration, Elle ends up back in the city she swore she would never return to, in an apartment she could never afford, floor-to-ceiling windows, skyline views, and a new coffee shop to haunt included. It's the perfect place to write her screenplay until she realizes her neighbor is tech billionaire bachelor Parker Warren. Her stairwell hookup from 2 years ago. It's been a lovers to enemies situation ever since. So it sounds like a cute rom-com. And it might be well worth reading. And I know that she certainly has a lot of fans. And this is, of course, completely different from the whole Lightlark series of books, which is fantasy. I think is YA fantasy. I don't know. Fantasy. I have the first book. I have not read it yet. Whenever I read it. But this one actually sounds more interesting to me. And then our last book of the 20 is another thriller by Harlan Coben called Nobody's Fool. I thought this one sounded really super interesting. So again, another one that I might hope will appear on Book of the Month. They do tend to like to pick up thrillers and odd ones like this, but it says, a year after the devastating events that took place in Fool Me Once, which was obviously his previous book, best-selling thriller and #1 Netflix series, a secret from former detective Sam Kearse's college days comes back to haunt him. Present day is hard enough for the disgraced Kearse, but his past isn't through with him yet. His investigation will bring him face to face with his past and prove, after all this time, he's nobody's fool. I love the sound of it. It sounds super good. That's a March 25th release. These last few have all been March 25th. And so it's a little bit too late for me to fit it into my pile of books for Realmothon unless I get lucky and it comes available on Book of the Month. You never know. So anyways, so that's it. Those are the 20 books that I had picked out for you for March, and I think they all sound interesting for all different reasons. A lot of variety of genres and types of books in there, even with one nonfiction. I mean, for myself, there are probably out of 20. Probably half of them that I find really, really interesting, which I think is a record for me, because usually when I do a list like this, I might only find like 3 or 4 that I really am interested. But I think it's a great publishing list, and there's definitely a ton of them on the list that I will be getting. So anyways, that's it for me for this. Now, my next video, I think I mentioned it at the beginning, but this one's going to be coming out on the 17th of February. And then the following week, which is the 24th, I will be publishing my TBR for Realmothon. And it's pretty extensive. And I'll explain how I broke it down and how I chose the books. And any of the books that I do not get to in that March will roll over into April. So I don't think I'll be doing a lot of TBR pulling and all that sort of thing, probably until May again. But several of the books that are going on are still meet my challenges. So they're still going to be from my buzzword challenges. And so I've chosen a few from there. And from my 25 in 2025, which I wanted to get to. And then we will attempt to take as many of those as I can and put them on my bingo challenge and eat up some of those bingo spaces. So we'll go through all of that on the 24th. And hopefully that'll inspire you to want to join the Realmothon even more. So hopefully this got you started, and the next one will get you there even further. So it was really great seeing you again, and I hope to see you in my next video.